Hello everyone, so welcome to the session and let's start the session. So first of all, we'll discuss about the agenda of today's session. So please note that there are many situations in the real-time project where actually we need to perform some kind of activity where we need some kind of information from the Salesforce environment. Sometimes we have to take the decisions in which we have to take the steps to achieve the solutioning of getting the data about Salesforce ecosystem, and according to that we need to take some kind of decisions. In short, we need such kind of information which is not present in our table or which is not given by user. In short, we need environmental information in many such cases, and that we regularly use in real-time project, by the way. So here now today we are going to understand that suppose you have some kind of requirement like this, where you have some requirement to get information like the browser information or some kind of information about the customer's system, what he is using, or let's say customer's language. So depending on that you want to take a decision, then we have something called as the global value provider. Okay, so they are very important and they are going to definitely help you in many cases. Let us try to understand what actually is global value provider. So please note, in Salesforce environment, the value providers are nothing but to wait the access to they are way to access the data. Okay, and here let me tell you something about that. So this is very important point we use regularly in real-time project. In fact, almost every project you are going to see this value providers. Okay, and pay attention. So value providers. Now see, first of all, please note that value providers are nothing but the process to access the data. Okay, and here let me just copy the notes from my system. Just give 1 second. So value providers are the process to access the data into the Salesforce environment, in your Salesforce Lightning environment. And value providers do what? They encapsulate the related values together, or let's say they combine the related values together. And similar to how the object in like combines the variable and functions together, right? That you had already seen into the classic programming. So similarly, the value providers are very much important for us, and the value providers for the components are V, and for the controllers are C. Okay, so let me just paste the code here. So please note, we already saw that whenever you want to get some kind of thing from component, we use V value provider, and you want to get something from controller, we use C value provider. Okay. Now let's try to understand something in more detail, because as we use this regularly, we need to understand with the clarity. So whenever you are going to provide V, then components attribute here, it helps to this value provider helps to access the value from the components markup. Okay, so that you know very well. So scope, when we use V, this value providers help us to get the data from component markup. And what is the meaning of component markup? So the code that whatever we write while creating a component is called as component markup. Okay, and next is when we go for this, when we use C, or let me mention C dot, and here V dot. Okay, then the value providers, then this value providers help us to get the data from controller code. Okay, so this way the two-way communication becomes easy, and we can very easily work on this functionality and get the necessary information into our Salesforce environment. So and apart from that, all the components uh, here like provided by V and C, we have already seen in the previous functionality. We understood how to use V and C. We have seen both the examples. Now let me tell you the next point. Now we are going to see the next point called as global value providers. Now these are something available globally because above both value providers are local to that component. So okay, so within that component or within that lightning component, we are going to use this in local way. Once we are coming out of that component, we cannot get that particular value from the component markup, or in short, let me write here component bundle. Okay, that will be easy for you to understand. So please note, both above values are value providers are local to that component bundle. But if you want something globally, then you have something called as global value provider. And this is what actually we are going to see. It's a very important point because we use this functionality regularly. So global value providers are global values and also methods that a component can use in expression. Okay, so please note this, these are combination of global variables or functions which helps us to get the information anywhere in the lightning project. Okay, now here there is a question in the chat box. So if you're using some kind of information and you want to fetch some kind of information from the server side, then also you can use this kind of functionality, and which is again coming from the controller side. So you can see here we mentioned here controller code. Okay, so we can get from controller code. Okay, fine. And now here okay, you got the question, you got the answer. It's mentioned here controller code. It's all related controller. Now whether you go for a client side controller, server side. Okay, okay, now next is global value provider. Now they are very useful, and let's see how we are going to use the global value provider in our Salesforce Lightning project. So first of all, the global value providers we are going to see with some kind of examples, so you can easily understand, which can give us multiple information. Like for example, we can get, we have some kind of options like this: gives global ID of component. So please note, every component will have two IDs. That is one local ID, and that is second is global ID. Okay, so please note that try to understand this concept. It's a small concept, but try to understand clearly. So every component has two types of IDs. One is the local ID and another is a global ID. And you can retrieve a component using local ID in your JavaScript code. And for example, I will just come down and mention here before this so that you will understand what actually we are doing. So I'm just writing this above as it's a separate topic and creating your background. Okay, every component will have local ID and global ID. So one local ID, this helps us to refer the component into JS code, right? We can just use this component in JS code, and this ID is something like this. You can see here. Now you can see I'm giving this kind of ID. So now in JavaScript, whenever I'm interested to refer this kind of button, I can simply use the ID called as button1 and problem is solved. Okay, this way we implement the functionality. Now, here, please note that suppose I want to find the button component, then I can do something like that. Component.find and pass the ID button in the client side controller, and this way I can just easily find out. Okay, so for example, so see here, generally how we declare is something like this. Okay, now how to use that local ID, how we use now, what you do, component dot get, and in the bracket you pass the value button1. So this way you fetch the value, right? So this way you can use in JavaScript code using local ID in JS, right? So in component, so this way we take the benefit of this. This is called as the local ID. Now here, to now here we have seen something related to component ID. Now we have something called as global ID also. Now this is something which we generally don't use, but try to understand. Every component has a unique global ID which is generated real time or at runtime. Okay, and a global ID is not guaranteed to be the same. Like it's going to be, it can be different, it can be modified, so we should not rely on that. Okay, and a global ID is useful to differentiate between multiple instances of component, or let's say for debugging and all. Okay, so by that, for that purpose we can have the global ID. Okay, so let me just mention, which is generally never used, not so popular, but for your knowledge it is good to have. So every component means every element. When I'm saying component here, note I'm talking about every element on your Salesforce, like component markup, a button or a field or a lookup or whatever. Some all these elements. Okay. So let me just mention here. Every component will also have global ID. This ID may not be always same. This ID is generated at runtime. So even we don't know what is ID name. Even we don't know what is ID name. Okay, it's generated at runtime automatically. Even we don't know what is ID name. Okay, as this changes regularly, or this as this can change during the process, we cannot rely on this. So we cannot rely on this, but this is useful for debug purpose, etc. But otherwise it's like generally not used. And we even don't need to we don't need to even remember that. Okay, just it's automatically available. So what we can do actually is, first of all, if you want to uh, let me just show you by running some kind of entity. Let me just go to Salesforce environment and let me do one thing. So just give 1 second. Let me open any Salesforce component which we created previously. Let me go to Lightning environment and go to developer console also.
Commerce Cloud.
And now I'm going to open any random lightning component that we have created previously. So just give 1 minute. Let me open any component which we created previously. And here we go. Click on preview. So let it get loaded. So let me refresh again because it's taking more than expected time. Okay, let me now go again to developer console because it's taking more than expected time. Okay, now let me tell you what is the mistake, why it's going, why it's just loading like this. I just saw that now. Now see, this is a good point to learn for you, and it's good uh, to know this issue. It's like a common problem we see in day-to-day projects. Now I was having that idea. I have seen this kind of issue in my past, in my previous projects, so I can quickly come to that solution. Okay, so you also know this point. In future, whenever you are going to come across this kind of problem, you can easily understand what is the issue. See, the code which you have written when we learned the lightning out, right? At that time, I used this application. I hope you remember we have seen the lightning out topic. So I made this application compatible for lightning out by writing this. Whenever we write like this, it becomes suitable for lightning out, and then immediately this application becomes useless for opening by this process where we can click on this preview update. It's not going to work because it is now created for lightning out. It's going to only work in the visual force page or somewhere outside of this environment. Okay, so for that reason it's not working. Now the simple process what we need to do is just we need to remove this. Now it will start working. Okay, anyways, the code which is present previously I was keeping here. Let me remove this and save it. Just understand, when you write lightning out, it's not going to show you in lightning environment. You need to call it somewhere outside, let's say for example visual force page, and then only you can see. Okay, now run that. and you can see application is ready. Okay, now right click and go to inspect element. Click on this. Okay, and now let me just do one thing. Click on this button. Okay, wait, click on this, click on button. We'll come to this point, by the way. This is something we are going to see how to debug the thing and how to use the inspector in future. Now let me just open that. Now you can see here we have buttons, we have divs. Okay, can you see here now? If you see this div, okay, if you see this for everything, this is the internal code we are having. Okay, and now you can see here. Okay, now please carefully pay attention. Please carefully pay attention. Look at this ID. Look at this ID. Such kind of IDs will be given automatically at runtime to distinguish these entities, and these are called as global IDs. We don't work on that, we don't create also, but it is something which is worth keeping in your mind that we have some kind of IDs. Okay, now let me go back to the notes. So this is useful for debug purpose, and this is created regularly during the process. We are just not going to rely on that because it's going to change, it is dynamic. So this is called as global ID. So just understand this important point, because sometimes it's asked in the interview, and then you can understand, then by this we will realize what is the meaning of global ID. Okay, now let me now proceed and continue the topic that we were understanding. Let me just come down. So by the way, we are having a separate topic for debugging and all. At that time, we learn everything. Okay, how to debug and how to track the things. We have a separate topic, so nothing to worry. Fine. So now we came to know. So see, now you realize the global ID, right? Now you realize what is the meaning of global ID. Okay. So the global value providers, in that there is one option which will give you global ID of the component that you can get by that way. Second thing, let's go for the second thing next. Apart from that, you have the concept called as browser. Okay, dollar browser. Let me write here. And dollar browser will is a global provider which returns information about the hardware operating system of the browser accessing the application. Very useful. Okay, depending on the browser, depending the OS, also we have to do something in some kind of situations in the project. This will help you. Dollar. Where is dollar? Dollar browser. Okay, this gives info about hardware operating system browser related to the lightning application, or on which the current lightning application is running, right? So see how useful it is that you can more interact now with the system of user, and you can, depending on that, take some decision. It's a very powerful thing. How can you understand what browser is user using? You don't know. What operating system you are using? You don't know. So this is going to give us the dynamic information, and depending on that we can also get some kind of data. We are going to see, by the way, this also in a short time, nothing to worry. Next, apart from that, there is one more important thing. Let's see something about the concept called as local. It's going to give the information about the current user's preferred local. Okay, for example, what is the time zone of the user, language of the user. Okay, so let's see something about that. Dollar local, this gives information about locale of the user, like language, like um, like time zone, etc., etc. So this kind of information we can get it. Again, based on that also you can perform some kind of various actions. It's very useful. Okay. Next, apart from that, if you are interested to uh, like you are interested to refer some image, documents, or JavaScript code in the static resource, then you can also use the global protocol as resource. So dollar resource, this let us use images, static, let's say CSS files, JavaScript files present in static resource of org. Now please note, whenever we want to use any kind of image into Salesforce or any kind of JavaScript document which is outside document, then we can do this by static resource. It's a concept which is generally we use when we want to use any external JavaScript file or CSS file or any image you are going to use into Visualforce page, any icon. In such cases we can take the benefit of that. So here you need to go to setup, and just I'm going to show you where it's like a present. So you can see in the custom code you have the option called as static resource. Please click on that. Now please note, these are the various things I have loaded in my laptop. If you want to use jQuery in your Salesforce environment, you need to load jQuery libraries. You want to use AngularJS, you can use AngularJS libraries. And you want to use some kind of JavaScript file, you can load the libraries. And also please note, before few months, if you want to also use the look and feel of Lightning, then you had to load one more library here for Lightning design system. But that headache now we are not having, because to make a look and feel of the Lightning environment to our Salesforce, to our projects, we can simply do like this, that you know very well. Just mention this, that's it. But previously what we used to do, before few weeks, we used to load the file of the Lightning designing system into the Salesforce environment. Then by dollar resource we are going to access that file in our code, and lots of headaches. But now we don't need to worry about this. Just write this, it comes automatically into the Salesforce environment. But apart from that, you have some kind of things like you want to you take any kind of zip file, Visualforce page, any kind of Java file, images, style sheet, everything you can use here. Okay. Java jar file, VF page, etc. You can just add anything. Okay, fine. Now let us see the global providers in action. So let's try to understand now these global providers in action. We are going to do one thing. We are going to now just global value providers into the action, by the way. So we are going to see now some kind of scenarios in which we are going to use this global provider. And first we'll see how the global providers are going to check what kind of things we can get the information from, and etc. etc. We are going to perform this. Okay. So let's first of all do one thing. Let's first of all create one application. Okay. So let's proceed. Let me just copy this code, and let me close all, or let me keep it like that, no problem. Keep it like that, and let's get new application, file new, in application, and give the name learning. That is a common name we start with, and then global value providers. Okay. Ah, okay. And we can do also one more thing. Instead of going for going for this, we can also call the components directly. Like for example, we can just create the component like this, and we can directly call them into the home page and all also. Okay, let's do both. So copy and paste, and just give here a component name. Let's say for example, learning global value providers and underscore component. Okay, and now let me create the component from this file, new lightning component, give the name and paste. Okay, now just save. So we have saved everything. Now what we'll do, we'll add one by one component into this, or we'll add various values. So first of all, we'll do one thing, we'll just get some browser details. Okay, so let's do that. And by the way, here that in this process we can perform this kind of activity. So just to ensure that here I'm going to save. I'm just going to uh, write some kind of code in the same scenario. We are going to work on the same scenario. So let me just do that. And first of all, let me just copy the code, and to save our time, let's paste in the component, and we are going to use some options provided in that component. Let me just do that. So let us see something like that. Okay, we'll just do one thing. We'll just take the component code of this here. Just take this, copy. I'm just taking the heading here from that previous project, and here I'm just going to write here browser details. Okay, so we are going to see now the details of the browser. Okay, so let us see the details of the browser, and here we can use just kind of some tag called as h1, a kind of heading option. Okay, so this will be very easy for us to implement the functionality. So this, paste, 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 and let's use something like this. And now what we are going to do is I'm going to check, is the device a tablet? Okay, and here the answer is this is tablet. So it's going to tell us that whether it's tablet or not. Simple, right? So you can understand what we are trying to achieve. We are just trying to see that is the device equal to tablet, and that's it. Okay, so let's do that quickly. And now below that I'm going to add a break line because I want a separate line. Okay, that's it. So now let me just copy this, copy and paste, 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 and cut. And here we go. So what information we are going to get? See, and let me mention the breaks also because we want in a separate line. So BR means line separator. So is the device a tablet? You are going to get the answer here. Now is the device a phone? Are we using in the mobile phone? Are we using on a tablet? It will show like this. And is the device Android phone? See how useful this is. It's going to give us lots of information by which we can take some decisions if we have to perform some kind of different activity on Android phone, some different activity on different device, if the device is not compatible. Okay, and also you can check the browser which user is using, and which browser user is using, you can get the information here. Okay, click on save. Then what we are going to do is I'm going to just run this application by clicking on save all and run preview. And one more thing here, you can see, is the device a tablet? The answer is false. It's not tablet because I'm using laptop, right? Next, is the device a phone? The answer is false. Is the device a Android? Now here the answer is also false. Which browser is using? The answer is desktop. Now please note here, you will see one important thing, that here in the browser it's going to give the information in the format of desktop, just to let you know that form factor is what exactly. So it's not actually going to tell, for example, Chrome or something like that. It will return three values. The form factor will give you only three values. It's actually enum internally, by the way. So it goes going to provide three information: desktop, if it's a desktop, phone, or tablet. Okay, let me mention here in our code what you need to remember. So let me just mention here in the component code. So I'm going to mention here things to remember, or things to row from code. In fact, note one. So form factor gives us only three options or three values. Okay, one is desktop, okay, and second is, now please note, desktop means like the same system. Now it's not exactly going to give the browser name, it's just going to give you the options of the desktop. Then second is phone, and the third is tablet. Okay, if it is a phone and if it is a tablet, three information we are going to get. Okay, remember this, not the browser name like Chrome, Firefox and all, but you can take this lots of but this will give you lots of help to decide what kind of settings and arrangements you need to make into this environment. Okay, now this is something which we saw related to the browser. Now it's time to see one more interesting thing. We will see something about the local information. Okay, so let me just give here local information. I'm just going to now do one thing. I'm just going to copy this entire information, copy and paste here, and we'll use some multiple breaks here so that we'll have proper space. Okay, let's give some space, and now here let's start understanding something about local details. Okay, so what kind of local details we can have? Now this will give us the information about the user. Okay, especially focusing on the user's local and language and all. So let's try to understand. First of all, local.language is the language is the option which is going to give you the information, what kind of thing a user can language a user is using or set, the country, and lots of things are there. Okay, so I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to copy the code in my system and I'm going to just paste here. Okay, so so you can just use like something like this. So local dot language, paste local dot time zone, paste local dot number format, even like we can set some kind of number formatting and all, how it's that, and also local and the user's currency format. Okay, you can get all this information. Now here, so first of all, language language of user. Depending on that, you can take some kind of decision. Language of user is what? Answer this. Okay. Then time zone of user is this. Okay. Now understand one important thing about number format. So here that we can not only check the local for this kind of information, but also we can check currency, country, and lots of things about that. And about the uh, about the concept like the number format. So please note the number format is actually useful to just understand that what exactly the number format the user is using, or in his format, what kind of format we are going to use in this number. This is totally bigger depending on the frameworks number and date formatting based on the Java decimal formats and all. So it's, in short, it's just more related to the framework, and this is something not we generally put more attention. By the way, it's just some kind of basic information which we just keep in our mind, but generally it is not so popular that we work on the number formats and all. Whatever framework gives, we just work on that. So number format of framework is something like this. Okay, and currency format also same thing. Now when you talk about the currency format, then it is related to user, because the currency whatever we decide in the user option, if you go for, you have the facility to decide the currency and all. Okay, so let's now run the code, and I think it is giving, yeah, so let me see, it is giving some error. Where is the problem? Let us see. Yeah, yeah, I need to close, remove that component, and now all fine. And now click on save and go to the application and run the application. Now see here, language of user is EN. EN means English. Time zone is Asia, Kolkata of the current user. That is me. Number format, like we have this kind of format as per the framework. You don't need to worry. And the currency format is like this. The currency is displayed here like this. And now please note that this currency, whatever actually we are going to use, so here this format, whatever information we are using, the better format, the better understanding of this we can do by the currency, by using currency symbol. So currency format is especially which generally people don't understand, so you can simply use the currency of user because it's more easy to understand. And now if you just run this application, now see what's going to happen. You have currency format, you have currency, and look at this. Okay, my currency is now dollar. Okay, so this way, this global value providers are very useful for us. Time to time it can give you lots of useful information and necessary actions you can take into your Salesforce environment. Okay, now let me just copy this code and let me just paste in your notes which I'm going to send you. So here I'm going to paste the application and go to that, and go to the component, and just going to copy the component and come here, and that's it. Okay, apart from that, there is one more thing which is regularly going to be helpful for you. What is that? Let me tell you. See, while writing the code into the Salesforce environment, it's also useful to understand that when you're working on various buttons and functionalities and all, then at that time some features like, for example, some features like, let's say, button click and so is also going to be helpful for you. Let's say, for example, you have some kind of code, and you have some kind of code, and from that you, let's say, how you might have multiple buttons. Okay, now to find out which button was pressed in the component, if that component is having multiple buttons, let's say 5 buttons, then we have a very useful use case. We regularly need to use this, and we take the advantage of this in real-time projects. So I would like to definitely tell you about this. We have the concept called as the local id. Okay, and the framework provides us two button formats, the UI button format, lightning button format that we already discussed. But the best way is always to use lightning button format. By the way, I think someone asked in this batch only before few days that which button we should use regularly. So lightning button is the best practice that we need to use. Okay, so now let us let us see one example how exactly we can take the benefit of the multiple button considerations and understand that how actually this is going to happen. Okay, I'm going to give you two scenarios and try to understand both the scenarios. Very useful and very regularly used in real-time project. Try to understand this functionality. So the topic is capturing the source of button click. Okay, please note, in real time projects there are many situations where we need to have multiple buttons in one component. Okay, now in this case multiple buttons in the one component, and in such case in JS controller there are some cases where we need to know the button is clicked, or in short, know which button is clicked. Okay, from that, from those multiple buttons. Okay, so below code may help us. Okay, so let's see, and just at the base I'm going to mention that we have we have something about buttons in Salesforce, in fact lightning. Okay, so we have two types. One is UI button and second is lightning button. We can use both in lightning projects, but lightning button is advised to be used as much as possible as it by and by the way, why we need to use this, please note the reason is as it comes with default lightning styling. So the best practice is it's more compatible, more close to the lightning framework. Then we don't need to worry about other button, we can simply use lightning button also. Okay, fine. So now we understood something about this, it's time to go for action. Now here what we are going to do is, first of all, we are going to see one code example, and we are going to understand how this activity is going to happen. And by the way guys, here now there is a question, so let me here please note that as per the question, so the person who asked the question, please pay attention if your doubt is clear. So in such cases there are many situations where we need to have multiple buttons in one component. Calling same JS function. Is that clear to you? Okay, so please note here, whenever you are calling a separate function for separate button, okay, then we don't need to worry about this. But when the multiple buttons are calling the same function, because we don't believe in writing multiple functions where the same code is present. We have one function going to call, we're going to make sum of two numbers, another function sum of two numbers, another function sum of two numbers. This is useless. This kind of format is wrong. We should use only one function as per the best practice of programming. And let's say multiple functions, let's say multiple buttons are there calling same functionality, then here we have a problem because we cannot use multiple functions. And second thing, multiple buttons are calling the same function, so we don't understand which button is calling which code. Or the same JavaScript code, here we have the JavaScript code we have, and we have button 1, button 2, button 3. We don't know which button is calling which code, and in this case we need to take the benefit of this concept that we are learning, which is also sometimes very useful in day-to-day work. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to tell you some kind of code and some kind of functionality. So what we'll do, first of all, we'll create the component, and let's say with the component rate we are going to write multiple button uh, um, component will be the name, multiple button 1js will be the component name that we are going to write. And in that, what we are going to do, that we are going to write a functionality, or we are going to write some kind of name, let's say for example attribute, which button pressed, etc. And then we are going to simply proceed with the data activity. We are going to just add some kind of information, and that's it. So let me write a code, and let's see that how we are going to perform this activity. Okay, and let me write some kind of code, paste the code here. Now see here, so first of all we'll create the component. Okay, so here I'm going to write the code. Okay, first of all I'm going to create a component multiple button 1js component, and in the component we'll write an attribute which button was pressed, a string. We'll just get the name of the button, and you clicked, we'll just mention here also which button you pressed. Okay, next is we are going to write two buttons. Okay, let's say button 1, button 2, label, let's say click me to some kind of different name, and press. And here we have the press like an action. This will call the JavaScript code, and here we are writing the function called as call JS code. This is the function name. Okay, so that's it. Okay, now let me go for the this component. Now let me talk about the JavaScript code about this component. Let's talk about the JavaScript code, and let me tell you how we can identify that which actually code is called. So for that reason, what you need to do is, first of all, you just need to create a JavaScript code and use the get source function to get the button component which was clicked, and also call get local ID if you want to get the aura ID or ID of the click button. Okay. So what we are going to do, that we are going to write now the code of that particular JavaScript, and let's see how actually it's going to work. The function which we are going to write is the call JS code function. Okay, and in that we are going to write the various components calling functionalities, but this time we are going to see something like this. So let me just mention. Now see here, uh, here in this code we are going to write this kind of functionality. See this JS code. So the function name you can see call JS code is here, and here we are going to declare a variable. We are going to get event dot get source dot local id. This way it will tell us that the control is coming from which button, the initiation happened by which button. We can display in the console, or also you can write alert the button which called is equal to, so let me just mention plus will print by javascript code. Okay, now okay, so this way we are just mentioning in the javascript. You can mention in javascript, and then component dot set, we can set the value like this. Okay, now let's see how it's going to work. And by the way guys, one more important thing, the example that we have seen, if we are using lightning button, then on that case we just need to only do one important thing, that is nothing but to understand that we can take the benefit of the on click. Okay, the only difference you need to see is we need to use on click function. In the client side controller we can use the method to find out which button was clicked. There is nothing but the local id, and also you can also get the name of the button, etc, etc. Let me do one thing. Let me just also write the lightning button, and let me just mention. So here code for UI button, I'm going to teach you both. Okay, and here the same thing we are going to write here. Now the same code you can write for lightning button, and just copy this. Okay, same thing. The only thing is here we are going to write the lightning button, and here we will not have press, will have on click. Okay, you'll have on click, that's it. Small differences, so better you always use the lightning, and it will be easy for you to understand what actually is going to happen. Okay, so like on click you can write all small case, fine, and you can use the same function, same code, not a problem. We are going to proceed with the second format, because the best practice is what actually I should be always telling you, and for that reason we are going to proceed for that. And also here we are going to add one more thing. We can also take the name of the button, that is the on which the button is clicked. So we can also get some kind of name like this. So here I'm going to create one more variable, and that variable is going to get the information like this. So variable button for variable button id, okay, and variable button name. Okay, and let me copy the same name and paste here. This is button id. Okay, you are going to get button id, and here you are going to get button id. Okay, and if you want to just alert the button name, that also you can write here. Let's say button name, I'm just printing button name, so I'm just printing in javascript. And also you can mention here because of which button it is created. So you can create one more attribute here, which button, let's say button pressed, so which button pressed id. Okay, for example id of the button, and here the name of the button, both we are getting. This is the variable which we are going to use here. Similar to that, we are also going to print something like this. So we are going to print both here in next line. Okay, so we'll print both, and here we will set the values from this side. So button id from this, and button name we are going to set from this. Okay, let's see. So first of all, go to Lightning environment, and do one thing. Then just copy this component code that we need, and we'll just use it here for our component scenario. We'll just mention here. This should be ideal before the uh, below that attribute name and write here button source. Okay, we are getting the button source. Okay, so get button source. Okay, and now let's create the application. First of all, go to this and go to any application, copy that code of the existing application and save all, and then close all, and file new lightning application. Now what is the name we are planning? Mm, multiple button one JS component. So let me do one thing, and there, here you're talking about the name. Yeah, so here name. Okay, and now let me give this name, and this will be app, and I'm going to now cut this and save. Okay, now replace that, and now let's write that. Okay, we forgot to write learning. Okay, no problem. And mm, we can do one thing, cut and come here, paste. Just give 1 second. Delete the application, file new lightning application, and just mention here learning multiple button one JS application. Control A. Application created, and then also create side by side lightning component and give this name component, and just copy and create, and just call this component here. Okay, and then go to the okay, I'm writing in the component only, cut and write in this application, and then go to the component, and now you copy your code from here, this extend slds, come here, write at the application level, now come to the component and go back to the previous code, and let's copy the component code. This is the component we are interested in, and we will use the lightning button because that is the best practice. And also we'll go for the JavaScript code, so we need to just copy this much JavaScript code, copy, come to the controller and just replace this much, paste. Okay, so you save first of all save file, save all. Okay, now we saved all, go to the application and preview. Okay, now it's coming, you clicked, let me make some kind of changes because it is better to give some kind of clear understanding. So let me write in a component, so you click, or let's say click button with id this, and you clicked button with name this. Okay, save this. Now go to application, and by the way, let me create one more br here because it's not giving proper space, so one more br here and save, and go to application and run the application, and let's see the output. Okay, so you click button with id. Now let's do one thing. First of all, we'll click on first button, please click me. Okay, that one, and then now please note that here you can see, that is, you can see you clicked the button with id equal to button 1, right? Now you clicked on second button, and even in the JavaScript alert it's giving you the button which called is button 2. Okay, and press on OK. and then you can just once you get the information, and you can just get the information like this. And now let me just do one important thing here. Now when you go for the JavaScript functionality, please note that whenever you're writing any kind of information, or you're just trying to fetch any kind of detailings, please note that while getting the information, if the functionality is having the format of the name and the information about the name, so here the name of the click button is what actually you are going to get. Okay, so while fetching the information, you need to ensure that if you are fetching the name of this here, if you are fetching the name of the button, then that name property should be present in the button. So come to this code and write here the button's name also. Name of the button is uh, button 1. Okay, and you need to also give the name copy button 2. Okay, save this. Okay, next. And here we need to just understand how we can get this functionality. And now just after adding name, just press on save all and application, and click on update preview. Okay, now see what's going to happen. Now click on the button please click me, so it will show you that in the JavaScript alert that button 1 is clicked, and press on OK. So it's saying you that the name of the button which is called is button 1. Okay, and you can see you clicked the button 1, and last time the name was not coming because name property was missing. This time it's coming button 1. Okay, now you clicked on the second button, it's going to show you in the alert button is called as button 2. Okay, and then if you press on OK, it's going to tell you the name of the button is called as button 2, and here you can see the name of the button is button 2. Okay, so this way you can easily get the information from the component, and in the alert you can make a small change that the button id is equal to like this, and the button name will be like this. So this code now I'm going to send. So this is the application. Let me just come here, and this is the application we are going to write. Then the component and the application you can just write with the same name, copy, and come with the application, and you write here application. Okay, and then this is the component that we have written. Now let me just replace with the component code that we have modified. So control A and C, so that I can just send you this code. Just copy and replace this, and also whatever changes we have done in the controller side, copy and paste here. Okay, and that's it. So now I'm going, and this was the last point that we already seen, the types of button and the best practice. Okay, so that's all with the agenda of today's session. We have seen some very useful and regularly used functionality in the real-time project. You are going to take the advantage of this regularly when you need to understand users environment or the event source. All we saw. Now please note here, now I'm going to send you some assignments based on the events, the environmental usage, and also using the source of the buttons. And please do all these things and let me know any kind of help you need, and we are going to meet in the next weekend. Till then, have a great time. I'm signing off. See ya.